Hello, everybody. Welcome to and welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis, with me, Mark, and a plethora of wonderful guests for this Friday night live for Dr. No-Vember, where a little bit later we'll be discussing our group read, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. How is everybody doing this evening?
Fine and dandy.
Really well, thank you.
It's a good afternoon.
I'm doing great. It's lunchtime here, though.
You should have all brought your lunches. We could have had like a working lunch. Well,
I ate my lunch before I came on screen.
Oh, well, we'll go for it, Jim.
That's
so
my way making sure I'm fed. That's all.
So the second week of Dr. No-Vember has drawn to a close. I'm just curious, apart from The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, what have people read this week? Randy, we'll start with you. We'll just go around.
What have I read this week?
Yeah, anything spy related.
Well, I finished The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and it's not spy related, but I somehow got drawn into The Executioner's Song by Norman Mailer. And I'm about 150 pages into it, too.
Oh, I know how you got drawn into that. I bet I know. I bet I can trace your exact mental path.
I was hoping you could.
It started with Harlot's Ghost, which is spy related.
It is.
There you go.
Mailer on the brain, and suddenly you're onto something else.
Harlot's Ghost is even longer than The Executioner's Song, which is
And
not a
it's
short book by itself.
Only half the book he intended to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only is Harlot's Ghost incredibly longer and foggy, focused, and incredibly misogynistic, when you battle your way to page 1200, he adds the words "to be continued." I felt like punching him.
Oddly enough, I still like the book.
Oh well, there's parts of it that are really good.
Yeah.
Is that a dog bark I hear?
It's Elvis. Yeah, sorry. He's run off into the bedroom and he's barking on the street at somebody or something. So
Does he have many enemies in the neighborhood that he has to bark at?
He does. He really does. And sometimes he barks at their owners, even when they're out without their dog. And one of them parks their car just outside here, and he'll go out and he'll be like, and then he'll just sit down and just bark at the car, even though there's nothing there, because he knows. We've got a few people popping in. Mark's here.
Mark should be here.
He should be here, but of course,
yes, he should be
working.
Yes, he's responsibly employed. The nerve.
Yeah.
Alan's here, of course.
We were going to go around with what you're reading.
Yeah.
I just finished.
You know, the funny thing is, Steve, I watched your live with Alan and Greg, and every 5 minutes you're like, check the comments. So I thought, I'll just check the comments now.
We were 2
hours.
hours.
Just saying hello. I'm going to try and keep on top of it. So, Jim, over to you. What have you read?
I finished The Spy Who Came In From the Cold quite a while back, and I started Berlin Game with Len Date, and I'm still only about halfway through. I'm enjoying it. It's totally different than The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, though. It's like two totally different types of writing, but I'm enjoying it. You know, it's part of a trilogy, so he's just taking his time to set it up and get going. But yeah, I haven't had much time to read lately. But yeah, so that's my third one for Dr. No-Vember. So I probably won't make all of them that I had From Russia with Love I was going to read, and a couple others. But I tell you what I did see on Steve's video the other day was The Man Called Intrepid, that book. And I had that copy, well, that book ages ago. I'd like to pick that up again and reread that. What an awesome book that is. Awesome story. True to life.
I'm on a Steve Donahue watching ban now because it's costing me too much money. Because every time I see, it's like I saw this, what was it, the Manuscripts Club yesterday, and I looked it up and I thought, oh my God, yeah, it's pretty pricey.
Yeah, I was looking up A Man Called Intrepid on Amazon, and I said, should I? No, then I kind of screwed up my whole read what you own challenge, so I'm gonna have to wait.
Oh, I'm deadly to read what you own challenges, just deadly.
It is.
Greg, what about you? Oh, sorry, Jim.
Well, I've read a couple of books. And the only thing that I have that's really sort of spy related is that I'm listening to the audiobook of G-Man by Beverly Cleary. Now, well, not Cleary, Beverly Gage. And why this is about the FBI, it also covers that period when the CIA was being formed and Hoover's interaction with the CIA and all the complications as whether like he really was not for a CIA. He just thought the FBI could do it all, but even though they're really just domestic. But so that's just a sideline to espionage. And if you have not read that, this is actually a very good biography, even though at times I feel like there's so much more depth that the author could be going into. But this biography is already 800 pages long.
Oh boy!
So,
Yeah.
I mean, Ed Hoover is. I don't even know how to begin to describe Hoover as a character. He's just.
Was he really a cross-dresser?
You know, the author has mentioned it, but I don't think there's any hard evidence one way or the other. And she's a biographer, and she's not going to go down that rabbit hole saying, oh, yes, he was a cross-dresser because of these rumors. Which is curious because she mentions his sexuality or his lack of sexuality or his partner who may not have been a partner. It's really rather complicated getting inside the life of Herbert Hoover because he's a very close man. And in some cases, I kind of wish she would just say, well, I think this is what happened. But, you know, she's sticking to the historical facts. But still, I think this is a pretty well-deserved and praised biography.
I first heard about his cross-dressing was when I was a kid. I was watching that, is it the Naked Gun films? Yeah, with Leslie Nielsen.
Right.
And they went around the room and they had these like not pictures, but like mounted displays from famous lawmen, and it had like Wyatt Earp with his, you know, pistol and whatever. And then it went around. There was a pink tutu with fluffy handcuffs with J. Hoover under it or something. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. But I wonder what that is. Agent K9. What have you read? Spy related. I suppose maybe I should just say today rather than this week because we probably haven't got time.
Well,
but
today it was only one. Today I read I reread Miranda Carter's biography of Anthony Blunt, which was terrific. It took all morning to reread it. It was much better the second time around than the first time around. And recently I reread David Kahn's big book, Hitler Spies, about Nazi agents. And I read the book that I found used, the Stevenson biography of A Man Called Intrepid. I read that book and realized after the first chapter that it was a reread. So you guys, I mean, Randy, for Pete's sakes, you owned a bookstore. What is the Man Called Intrepid that I'm thinking of? It was, I'm assuming, a mass market paperback. I want to remember that it was white in America. There was a famous mass market paperback of A Man Called Intrepid that sold, I'm pretty sure, the paperback millions of copies.
Probably the one I read. Yeah, it was a white cover.
You remember it?
I don't remember.
That's probably the one I read. Yeah.
The one that you read was a mass market paperback. I know that I read this before, and it had to be that. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, don't you remember being in bookstores and seeing that a million times?
I've looked it up.
I'm going back a ways, but yeah, I do recall it.
I've looked it up, and there are actually 3 that might fit the bill with white covers. There's one where it's a white cover with black writing, and there's a red silhouette of a man in maybe it's a trilby with then the big 3 from the altar sitting ensconced in that. So I don't know if that's that. That looks pretty old. Then there's a white one, A Man Called Intrepid, with loads of medals.
Oh yes, of course.
Is that the one?
It's that.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Okay, well, I have read it before. Really liked it, though. Boy, what a book. Everybody, every little character
Reads like
Dick
fiction.
has an amazing biography. And Stevenson understands how to do that, which is they get an amazing 2 paragraphs in the Sun, but they don't derail the narrative. That was just wonderful. Absolutely. So that's all. I've done a ton of spy reading in addition to rereading every novel in the world this month. I've been rereading every novel in the world.
Well, I read, obviously, read in inverted commas. I listened to A Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which was really enjoyable, the narrator. And I read Ben McIntyre's A Spy Among Friends, which was about Kim Philby. And I really enjoyed that. I thought it was excellent. It's funny because it's one of those stories that anyone, even with a passing interest, seems to know, but it was nice to actually go into it in detail. However, I made the mistake then of watching or trying to watch the recent dramatization of the book, which the BBC had done. And it was rubbish, basically. Well, it wasn't rubbish, but they, again, had to politically correct it up, right? So Nicholas Elliott, who was a great friend of Philby's and the guy sent to confront him in Beirut, then found himself being interrogated throughout the program by a woman who works for MI5, which of course was nonsense. And then for just a random fact to slip in a bit of color into the proceedings, she happened to be married to a West Indian man, which again was nice, but it had no bearing or relevance at all to the book that it originally comes from. So, and it just wasn't very good. I mean, even though it had some good actors in it, well, I think Damian Lewis is quite good. He played Nicholas Elliott, and they had Guy Pearce as Philby, but I just didn't do it. The book was way better, much better.
I have a question. I have a question about the audio of The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. I always complain that in audiobooks, the fact that it's an audiobook takes decisions out of my hands as a reader. But here I'm curious, because I'm never going to listen to this and it's not a new release. When the narrator gets to Fiedler, or especially Munt, does the narrator try to make them sound threatening?
It's interesting because the narrator is actually Michael Jaston, who, if you know, he's Nicholas II in Nicholas and Alexandra, and also he's Peter Gwilym in the original Tinker Tailor series.
Oh, he's in the original Tinker. Okay, all right. So,
and I don't know if he's like great at accents and things, but the way he conveys the tone, I think he does quite a good job. I mean,
because there are 2 ways you could do it, right? Either Fiedler and Munt are functionaries just like George Smiley, so when they say you really should tell me everything you know, they just say it like that. Or they're Bond-style supervillains. They're still going to say you really should tell me everything you know, but it's going to sound completely different. They're going to say it like,
Well, there's no mistaking that Munt is the more menacing of the two. The way he puts it across. Excuse me. Fielder starts that way, but for obvious reasons he softens and he's quite he makes you more sympathetic to him by his tone of voice and stuff. I suppose. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
interesting.
But it was good. It was very good. I mean, I've read it a couple of times. I think it was my third meeting with the work. So read twice and listened once. And I enjoyed the experience. And I think that was a lot of the reason was down to the narrator, right? Because I associate him with John le Carré. I think he's read, at least for the UK audiences, has read all of le Carré's work. I think there's a couple where le Carré's read them himself, but they're heavily abridged generally, which I don't understand. So like you can get Tinker Tailor for like 3 hours or something. And
how could you listen to an audiobook read by him if Peter Gwilym is in the book? How could you do that? That would be so weird.
I was saying to the guys before you came on that I swear when Smiley came in, he had to stop himself from doing an Alec Guinness impression, So well, let's just go through the comments quickly. Groovy Pop Tarts here. Hello. Alan lets us know he's kicking ass in the Read What You Own challenge. I guess a question for you, Greg. Aren't there any pics of Hoover wearing a dress?
No.
No, photoshopped. You can't trust them.
It'd be terrible these days, wouldn't it? There'd be all the AI pictures and everything. So
yeah, you don't even know nowadays.
Hi, Michael. He says, any graphic novels on No-Vember TBRs? Not on mine, gentlemen.
Not on mine.
So
I
not spy-related, no.
I wouldn't know if there are any, really. Are there?
Is it Modesty Blaze?
Yeah, Modesty Blaze might work. Yeah, or Nick Fury.
I almost got Modesty Blaze, but by the time I got around to it, it's too late. Can't buy anything. Maybe for another Dr. No-Vember.
I've got a couple of James Bond. No, I've got Casino Royale in a hardcover trade. I didn't think of that, to be honest.
Groovy Pot Tart's adding a man called Intrepid to her TBR. Speaking of Damien Lewis, I've never watched the entire series, but seasons 1 and 2 of Homeland are excellent. Yeah, he's pretty good. Hi, Bad, welcome.
Hey,
Smiley was mentioned in Spy Who Came from the Cold, but is the main character in Tinker Tailor. Yes, he is. Yeah, I guess he's kind of the main character, really, in some respects, or at least a very integral part.
I think we're going to be discussing how much Smiley is working in the background in this book.
Well, it says right on the cover, it says a George Smiley novel.
Yeah,
right on the cover.
Yeah,
and he's barely in it, But yeah.
Well, I sort of disagree. I mean, he's barely in it on stage, but he is backstage a lot.
But the publishers are going to do that anyway. I mean, the publishers did that. What was the last Legacy of Spies? Smiley he is not operating backstage. He is mentioned twice, and it was a George Smiley novel. They know where their bread is buttered.
Is it any good, Steve? Because I was thinking of jumping into reading it next, because it says it's kind of the sequel, and I haven't read this one yet to The Spy Who Came from the Cold.
It is kind of good as a kind of sequel.
Okay.
Kind of, sort of, to the George Smiley novels. But I view that as a failure. There's no way that you would understand that this book was any good unless you had come off this whole body of work. And that's wrong. That's beneath Le Carré. And then we won't even talk about Silverview. We won't even talk about his alleged last book. Although our guy's in the news, right? Because Penguin is authorizing his son to write a George Smiley novel.
I don't see that certainly these continuation of books by different authors. I mean, I'm not in favor of it. I mean, like we talk about Holmes. I want to stick with the original Holmes stories. I think there's plenty to go around, and that's just my opinion.
When it comes to the Sherlock Holmes stories, I mean, you've read them and reread them so many times, and it's almost like I'm not big on pastiches either, but I mean, I have tons of Sherlock Holmes pastiches because I just want to keep reading the characters, and some of them aren't the greatest, but I mean, some of them are really well done, and they really have a good insight into the characters, and they do a good job. And you're I
agree.
Yeah,
I agree completely. If we said goodbye to Holmes pastiche novels, I'd be saying goodbye to a lot of novels I really like. Yeah. But when you get a Holmes pastiche novel, it's got the author's name on it, big as life. And I don't know for sure that Penguin is going to bring out this new George Smiley novel with Nick Harkaway's name on it. That's what bothers me about the necrofiction for Robert Parker Spencer, for instance, is that, or Tom Clancy novels. The co-writer is barely on the cover. It says Tom Clancy's new novel.
Yeah, and that's a bad trend.
This is a circus novel by Nick Harkaway. Fine. But they're not going to do that. They're going to have Le Carré's name on the cover, big as life, to sell it. And that bugs me. I love Nick Harkaway as a writer. Absolutely love his writing. But only John Le Carré can write a Smiley novel under his own name. I think. I don't know. We'll see.
Probably just do like Le Carré's George Smiley, won't they? Yeah, so.
There's a grand tradition of doing this, though. I mean, Zane Grey, his son, wrote like westerns under Romer Zane Grey was his name, right? And then even Arthur Conan Doyle, like what was his son's name? Adrian Conan Doyle wrote The Exploits of Sherlock Holmes, but it wasn't him that wrote it. It was apparently John Dixon Carr who wrote it, and John, the son just put his name on the stories. So
I have my reservations. Of course, I'll gobble it up, but I have my reservations.
So why would Nick Harkaway? I mean, like I said, I've read a couple of his books. They're really good. He doesn't need to write under something. I mean, he can do his own book.
Exactly. He does not need to do this. In his introduction, I mean, Tiger Man by Nick Harkaway is a book that anybody would love. It's fantastic. Tiger Man is a fantastic novel. But he didn't do it. In his introduction, in his preface to the book, he says he's doing it out of affection because he grew up not only with his father, but with George Smiley.
But he's getting a good paycheck too, I imagine. like John Banville did a Marlowe novel, Philip Marlowe novel under the name Benjamin Black, and now there's
what's his name? The worst heresy of all. We should send Mark out of the room for this one. Who was the guy who's now done 3 Jeeves and Wooster novels?
Oh.
The ultimate heresy. But there've been 3 of them, I think. I want to say Julian Fellows. It's not Julian Fellows.
No, I don't think it is. I can't remember who it is, but I know what you mean. But they did it also with Flashman, or at least they was it Flashman's son or Flashman's grandson? They carried on. Someone carried on writing books. Yeah,
I know that there is a second Flashman series, not anyone related, but this one is about Flashman's grandfather.
All right, grandfather. Then that was the wrong way around. Yeah.
Right, it wasn't the same character, and the grandfather in the Flashman books like loans Flashman money or something in one scene, and sort of like the Flashman in the original. What's the original book that by
Brown School Days?
School Day. He's just a minor character, and this other author turned the grandfather into a major character.
Oh, that's right. Which Flashman book is that? The grandfather. Heavy hints are dropped that he was a hellraiser when he was younger. Oh, I don't remember, but
I tried to read the one about the grandfather, and I got about halfway through it, and I'm going, this is not Flashman. This is something entirely different.
I mean, the only way I think perhaps the George Smiley one could work is not continuing in the same time. I mean, I for one would love to know more about the younger Smiley and his service during the war. And I think if Harkaway goes down that route, he can get away with being a bit different because people change as they get older. So the tone can be a bit different, because
I wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't. You're too young, Steve, of course, but you'll find out.
You get to be my age, you'll understand, Steve.
Oh, God. I can't imagine it.
But I think that could actually work because it's always something they hint at in the books. It's just the stress and things he was under because he was an undercover agent in Germany during the war. So I mean, it couldn't be much more scary things to do. So
I'm looking forward to in 2024 the George MacDonald Fraser estate will be authorizing a sequel to Flashman, non-binary, Flash person, blue hair. It'd be great.
Flash person, yeah.
You mean a kinder, gentler, politically correct Flashman?
Yeah, politically correct and politically attuned, just like today's young people, all of whom today are quoting the words of their hero, Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Even for the 21st century, unbelievable that Gen Z is adopting Osama bin Laden as their Che Guevara. It's unbelievable. Dug up a manuscript of his, a screed against everyone in the world, and are quoting it, probably having it tattooed.
Yeah.
we should reel back.
I saw some headlines on that, and I said, I'm just not going down that rabbit hole. Just like, oh well.
No. The only thing I want is repercussions. You are free to do that if you want, but I want repercussions. a best-selling, very buzzy, very online, very hot author for Tor, tweeted yesterday that she's read that manifesto and she thinks she would disagree with Osama bin Laden about a lot. But one thing she can certainly say is that the most righteous thing he ever did was the World Trade Center attacks. Okay. You got your career at Tor. It's online. You've got convention appearances, and you tweet that you are in favor of the destruction of the Twin Towers. You should suffer the repercussions of doing that. You want to do that just fine. But your publisher should drop you like a hot rock. That's unbelievably
And
perverse.
the death of what, 1,500 people or however many it was, I forget. But yeah,
I mean, these people just can't. They just surely can't even remember it, right? I mean, no one in their right mind could remember that day and think anything other than a horrific.
If she thinks
attack.
that, I'm perfectly okay with that, provided she's fired by Tor today. And they're not gonna do it. I have no idea why, but they're not gonna do it.
You know, maybe we should have a Friday night current event show.
Yeah. Let's
5 hours.
Although
I actually have a couple of things I want to talk about in this book.
Well, yes, we are going to. We will, and we will actually start because Jim's time's limited it for this. So,
Okay.
Let's start with Jim because his time's limited. Thoughts and reactions to Spy Came from the Cold. And it was your first reading of it, was it this time, Jim, or you read it before?
No, I've never read it before. That was my first reading. So, I mean, yeah, just like an amazing novel. You know, I mean, we all know the end, and I don't know if I should give spoilers or not.
You can spoiler because I warned them. I said, you know, talk about it. If anyone's watching and hasn't read it, then turn off now.
Yes,
like
please,
one person watching now.
right. Please hear that warning. We are going to spoil this novel.
Yeah.
No way we're going to talk about this thing without and tiptoe around.
It's from like 1962. We can spoil it. I mean, the cat's out of the bag anyway.
True.
So you know, let's go. Go for it, Jim.
You're reading the novel and you're never real sure about like Leamus is just kind of a cipher. You never know the real Leamus throughout the book. And the only time you get to know the real Leamus is right at the end when he goes back for the woman. You know, like is he a gruff drunk? Is he a canny secret agent? Like what's going on? Like you never really get a real handle on his character until the very, very end. You know, and you realize that he cared for that woman and he basically sacrifices himself to go back and just die with her, you know, and that was incredible, you know. What a touching, awful, beautiful thing that was, and that was, you know.
And one of the things I thought, I noticed it. This like my fourth time reading, is that the woman Elizabeth, she's really harping about how bad Leamus is as a person. It's like, how could you do this?
Yeah.
And it's one of my questions is, when she's at the wall, does she give up? Just thinking, what am I getting myself? Like, is it a form of suicide, saying how horrible this life is and saying this is the end?
Yeah, because she.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
she gave.
Well, she wants to run though, doesn't she?
She does, but it's
and he's holding her. She wants to run towards the wall, but he's like supporting her or holding her in such a way that she can't. So it seems like she's quite keen to get over
or get away from him. I mean, she starts giving him heck for leaving Fiedler back there. Fiedler was the one person who showed her sympathy and mercy, and she looked at Leamus and started giving him like why don't we go back for him? He's the only decent person, the only person who treated me decently out of this whole thing, you know, and that preyed on her that they had to leave him back there like that, Fiedler, right?
Yeah,
it was twists and turns, boy. It was quite the novel. It was quite the roller coaster.
I mean, my one problem with that, though, Jim, is like how quickly these things. I know it's a short novel, and perhaps we have to like suspend our belief, but how quickly she makes her mind up about Fiedler just on like this one interaction that she's and just how much she's like in love with Alec, and yet they've barely spent a couple of days together, really. You know, in the whole thing,
she's naive. She's like a naive waif. She's the one. She's the one innocent in the whole thing.
She's a bit annoying, though, isn't she? I don't know.
I found her very sweet, actually. I didn't find her annoying at all.
I don't know. I don't know if sweet is like she's very isolated.
Yeah,
and very alone.
Maybe sweet was the wrong word.
And the fact that she just sort of glommed onto Leamus just because she was alone as a human being. I mean, essentially, and then here comes Leamus, who's totally alone. And she thinks there's two people alone right here in this library.
Yeah.
Why don't we be together? Because then you have some sort of human contact.
And she was a typical like Florence Nightingale. She nursed him back to health, and she. I thought that was very endearing.
I think that's the key. I think we've started off right on the worst part. The most problematic element of the whole book is the sexism that's baked right into it. There's no overt sexism at all. It's just baked into the book. You can't avoid it. She nurses him back to health, and so she's completely devoted to him. But also the parallel, right? What is the first time that we get any kind of a human reaction out of Leamus? It's that he's completely horrified that his number one agent shared anything with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
He's certain that brought about that agent's downfall, and what brings about his downfall?
Sharing with a woman.
Exactly.
But no, here's one thing, Steve, also that I noticed in this book. He keeps saying that Munt could not be a double agent because he would have known.
Yeah.
And he did not know. The whole time he was running that.
Right.
He did. And now the thing is,
George
Smiley Leamus didn't know. And he's letting Leamus be the runner of that department or whatever, knowing he's not going to figure it out. Because if he figured it out, it would ruin everything.
But I don't understand why you're giving so much agency to Smiley. Why wouldn't you say that it was Control who thought all that?
It could be. It could be.
One way where you and I disagree on our reading this time around is that I don't see Smiley as being all that involved in this book. He doesn't like the heartlessness. I think he doesn't like the heartlessness of Control's plan. I think it's really kind of telling that Munt is a Nazi, pretty much a Nazi. I love it when one character says that Fiedler is Jewish and Munt is very much the other.
Yeah, the other thing.
Very much the other. What's that supposed to mean? But, these people are horrifying. They torture people and disappear people for a living. But the villain is Control. He's awful. Absolutely. The more we learn about him, the worse it is.
He is truly heartless.
Truly.
He will sacrifice anyone to get what he wants. I mean, one of the things I love that Le Carré does, you get the impression that Smiley would also sacrifice someone if he had to, and we know that he has in his history. But Smiley's not hateable, and Control with his horrible, 7 dwarfs house and his measly wife and her horrible behaviors, everything is his horrible taste in tea. Everything is chucked in to make us hate him personally.
I think it's in Tinker Tailor, isn't it? I'm assuming it's the same Control. I'm pretty sure it is. But he says he hated everywhere except the circus, Surrey, and Lord's Cricket Ground. So, he was very much. But yeah, I agree. But Smiley's still there. I mean, I'm pretty because there's so many references like to this frog-faced man with glasses or whatever standing in the background as well, and that's got to be him, isn't it?
It's all very nebulous, though. He's not even living in his own apartment. it's all very nebulous. I don't see that.
It is
that's
Smiley. It is Smiley at the end who's calling to Leamus the girl.
I don't
isn't it?
believe
Saying
that.
The girl Alec or whatever.
I don't
pass the
believe
girl
that.
over.
I don't think that Leamus is hearing anyone in that scene. He's certainly not hearing George Smiley. You think George Smiley can get all the way to the foot of the Berlin Wall? That would be as big an operation.
Because here's the last page. It goes, jump, Alec, jump, man. Now everyone was shouting in English, French, and German. So someone's shouting him. Someone tipped off where Leamus and the girl, I mean, obviously Munt was going to say they're going to come across here. And who is he going to notify? Now, maybe you're right. I just assumed it was Smiley at that wall saying, jump, Leamus.
Why would you assume that, though? In Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, George Smiley can barely get across London in the rain. You think he can get all the way to the Berlin Wall? What? He'd be. What's the Mark? What's the British word? Rumbled?
Well, yeah, maybe, but they all know about him anyway. So I mean, read back a little bit, Greg, because I'm pretty sure that they mentioned Smiley at that end. In that end,
I've got it here.
He's imagining things. He's
He says
imagining.
now everyone.
Barbed wire on the top of the Berlin Wall. You expect photographic memory? That's
He says now everyone was shouting English, French, and German mixed. He heard Smiley's voice from quite close. The girl, where's the girl? Smiley's asking where the girl is.
Yeah.
So Smiley was there.
Specifically.
Yeah.
I was right. It says Smiley.
Yep.
I don't believe it. It's only Leamus' viewpoint that we're getting there. I don't believe it.
Concerned? Why was he so concerned about the girl? Smiley.
Well, that tracks with the book because he visits her and he seems to care. He says, we'll provide you with money. Here's my card.
Yeah, but that was all manipulation. All, because of the, the court case. It was all set up that way, right?
I don't know. It never crossed my mind that it was actually Smiley standing there at the wall saying, hey, throw her over.
Really?
I'm right here. I'll catch her. It just didn't. It seems like, well, J. Edgar Hoover showing up somewhere.
In a tutu.
I want to read something before I go that I highlighted in the book. And this kind of speaks to like a double agent kind of thing. It's on page 129. For him, deception is first a matter of self-defense. He must protect himself not only from without, but from within, and against the most natural of impulses. Though he earn a fortune, his role may forbid him the purchase of a razor. Though he be erudite, it can befall him to mumble nothing but banalities. Though he be an affectionate husband and father, he must under all circumstances withhold himself from those in whom he should naturally confide. I thought that was very interesting. Just you kind of like tensing a muscle. You just constantly have to be.
I think what's also interesting though is why they don't let Leamus in on it. Considering he is running that, why is he untrustworthy?
I don't think he's a very good spy.
They don't think he's a very good spy. Right. He's lost a whole bunch of men. He's a failure. The only reason Control wants him to do this is because Control is okay with losing him.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'd already run his stretch. He was done. He done what he had to do. He was finished pretty much over the hill.
Even when he was running it, I think they ran a mediocre agent saying a smarter agent's going to figure out that Munt is double. And in order for it to work, Leamus or whoever running should not know. And this is like a need to know basis. And say, we don't want our agent smart enough to figure this out. And, he's probably good at something, but it's like he was just a pawn in this game.
Yeah, but Leamus hadn't lost Carl and his other agents when Munt had been recruited initially. Surely that was it's going back a few years.
Yeah, this long. Control tells him, one of the conversations that we get in flashback is Control telling him everything has been put in place here. You're just the last piece in the puzzle.
Yeah. So I don't think he could. Because they couldn't have thought he was such a bad spy to have sent him to Berlin of all places initially. And
No,
it seems
but
that Munt must have been working with the circus for a long time. I mean, it's not just something that's happened in the last year or so.
right, but Munt is in danger. He's in peril. So
Yeah, but what I'm
needs-
saying is they might not have, why didn't they tell Leamus about Munt like initially, like when he was recruited? Because he would have fallen under Leamus's remit at the beginning.
Wheels within wheels. no one allowed to know everything.
You don't think they could have sent anybody in to do that? You know, could they have chosen anybody? No, I don't think.
No, but the thing is, he was the perfect setup. I mean, when you're looking, because they wanted to have a believable agent that turned, and he was just happened. I mean, when you're looking at it, says, well, I think he's a good candidate for that.
Just a matter of convenience. They looked at him and said, okay, well, he's good. He's ready to go.
And I think you can pull the wool over his eyes. They pulled his wool over not knowing Munt, because he mentioned that so often in this book. If Munt were an agent, I would have known. And they mentioned at least twice or three times. Alex says that.
Well, right, but we're also in flashbacks. We're told that Control told him to insist on that. Be proud, act offended that you might not know something. Let them figure it out.
Yeah, I want to read it a second time, like you suggested, Steve. Yeah,
you got to read it again. Absolutely. Although I've been working my way through Le Carré for Dr. No-Vember, and you know, my favorite has always been A Perfect Spy. But good God, is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy a better book than this one? It's not just that it's twice as big; it's twice as assured. It's twice as complex. I think. And also, it's also, I think, twice as beautifully written. There are parts of this book that are pretty bald.
It was his first, right? It was his first novel, wasn't it?
No.
His third.
No.
It was his third, but his first, like, big success, yeah.
Okay.
So, what's the one I'm thinking of? The first Smiley appearance. Call for the Dead.
Call for the Dead has Munt in it as a character.
But Call for the Dead did not do well commercially?
I think it's all right. But the big success for him was Spy Came In From the Cold.
This is the fourth Smiley book. He had Call for the Dead, Murder of Quality. I think it's the Looking Glass War.
No, I think I think this is the third one, and then it's Looking Glass War, isn't it?
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so touching.
Tinker Tailor is brilliant. And what I like about it is you can read it as a standalone. You can.
Much better than you can read this as a standalone, I think.
Well, yeah, of course. You don't need to, I'd read Tinker Tailor was the first of all of them that I read initially. Because it just happened that way, right? But I think because someone asked me which one should I start with, and I said, well, you can start with either Spy Who Came From the Cold or Tinker Tailor, because enough is concluded in Tinker Tailor that you can leave with some satisfaction. However, of course, it does continue through the next two books if you want it to. So,
but Jim, you really do need to reread it.
I think so.
When I was rereading it this time around, I get to the point where Leamus is thinking, well, Control said I could keep whatever money I make.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a pension. So a bungalow, a little pension, and 15,000 pounds, that's all a spy needs to come in from the cold. And a gratuity, right. I read that this time around and thought, how on earth, the first time that you read this book, did you miss the fact that when he said that, it meant he would die? that in fact, the whole point is no spy ever comes in from the cold. None of them do. It doesn't matter how much you set yourself up. You're part of a game to the end.
Well, you see, that's the thing. It's interesting because I think the ideal thing is that he is supposed to survive. She's killed by Munt, right? She's shot at the last minute. Because bear in mind, the wire was cut. Why would you bother to cut the wire if you didn't expect them to get over? And he goes up first, and then they shoot. What's her name?
Munt?
They
shot her?
Liz.
Munt doesn't shoot her, but Munt orders it. Munt orders it to cover himself.
He
The classic
orchestrates it.
summary of John le Carré's entire career as a novelist is that when you get to a woman character, you say, "What's her name?"
Yeah, it looks good as well with five men, five white guys. Yes.
Her name was Liz.
Liz Gold,
yeah.
that's right, Liz Gold. I had Olivia in my mind because of something else I was reading, but
People also sometimes will remember the name of Smiley's wife specifically because she's stepping out on
Lady Anne. Lady Anne, I remember that. Connie Sachs. Connie Sachs is a good female character in that. Well, maybe. But Jim, yeah, I think Munt orders it because he was going to kill her anyway, probably, and I think she's the loose end. So, because bear in mind, he gets up there, the wire's cut, he then reaches down to get it, and then she's shot. So I think the idea was he probably expected Leamus to just continue, because I don't think he felt that his feelings necessarily were that genuine. I don't know. It's just my guess.
You said earlier that you seem to think that she let herself go.
I think she in herself was having questions. I mean, she was having this internal doubt. Like, we're all bad people. How could she was accusing Leamus, saying, "How could you let this happen?" And
is it possible that she also didn't want to abandon the party?
You mean that her idealism was shattered?
And
and that's why I thought, in a part, that she herself gave up towards the end. It's like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Alec said, "I'm done." Once he saw her shot, said, "I'm done. I'm just going to die here with her."
That was huge.
It was. And part of it also is he saw himself as a failure.
But does he actually get shot though?
Yes.
Or he just falls down. He just falls down the wall after her.
He does, and
as opposed to what?
On the other side,
she was
He
dead.
ends up in a tutu. Is that where he's going to end up in a tutu?
Finally, they shot him 2 or 3 shots. He stood glaring around him like a blinded bull in the arena. That's actually pretty good, because the bull is all part of the game that's meant to die from the very beginning.
And it's an exact parallel for the beginning of the story. When
he refers to the car
giving it all up to a woman, gets shot and doesn't die right away.
Yeah.
He refers to the car he saw earlier in the story when he saw the kids, and he imagined that car being smashed and the kids, dying in the car crash. And the very last line refers to that. So you assume, he's gone.
Yeah,
that was amazing. That's an amazing writing choice on le Carré's part. I'm not a big fan of the writing in this book, but the recurrence of that horrific moment on the Autobahn, where he almost kills the whole family, and the kids in the back don't even realize the danger they're in, and he actually has to pull this seasoned man killer. He has to pull over.
Have we had instances?
The fact that le Carré could write that so well, and that he would also bring it back, that's just wonderful.
Randy, what about you? Have you anything to add, mate?
Did anybody else notice that the food sounded awful in the book? Everything was like some watery soup or gruel with some sausage on the side. It's a recurring. It happens repeatedly throughout the book that they serve them these horrid meals.
The whole atmosphere.
Maybe that's why he decided to let go at the end, because the food was so terrible that he thought he was never going to get a good meal again.
We're getting a little glimpse here of what Randy would be like as an operative.
It'd be easy to turn.
We can guarantee you £15,000 in an annuity, but what about the food? I'll stay out in the cold if the food's not good.
Mark.
Yeah.
I want to show you this. I've got an extra copy of this in a slipcase. If you're interested, I know you were talking about wanting these. These have the 4 novels in it. So if you're interested, do you have these already?
No, I don't, because I couldn't get them all with the same format.
Oh, right. I couldn't remember if you said you had a couple and you were looking for a specific one, but that's an extra copy I have. I
All
forgot.
right,
I thought I sold it, but I have it.
okay. I'll send you a message then later. I'll
Yeah.
I
check,
hate to say
check
it,
to see
but,
which ones are available and which aren't. So
I have those annotated homes, that very version, as an ebook, and I hate to say it, but it doesn't work as well as a print.
no.
No.
Annotated books just don't.
But then
They
sometimes
could.
you think they would, because you can just hit the links.
Yeah, but
Rather than
instead,
having
nobody
to-
bothers. Nobody bothers to put the money or the effort into making it work well. An annotated book would work better in an ebook than it would in a print book. Should, but it doesn't at all. It's a mess.
But these are beautiful. They are
No.
beautiful.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
lovely. Well,
And
that
an
set is
ebook-
lovely.
ebook
It's one of
cannot
the
compare
rare
to them.
instances where a new set is better than the old one when the old one was great.
Right.
Oh, I'll
You're
message
talking
you about
about
that,
Baring
Jim. Thank
Gould.
you.
Oh, you're welcome, Mark. Yeah, let me know.
Baring Gould. Yeah, you've got the Baring Gould ones as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Wouldn't have
And
thought those could be bettered. I really wouldn't have thought those could be bettered. And I don't think the introduction is bettered. No one could write about homes like Baring Gould.
Well,
But
honestly,
the new version is just better. It's
I
just-
agree. I agree. I prefer the Baring Gould ones for sure. I agree.
The one thing I never understand about big annotated editions like that, when you're going to redo it, especially in a case like this where you know the previous edition was beloved, I never understand why the new edition doesn't print the introduction to the old edition alongside the new introduction. We're going to give you a preface. We're going to give you the introduction. We're going to give you all new notes. You want all the new notes, but we're also going to include the introduction, at least, to the earlier volume because you all loved it. I don't know why they don't do that. Norton has the right to it. Why? I see that all the time. You see that all the time in any kind of reprint edition, like Oxford. Oxford World Classics did all of Trollope in paperback for his centenary. And then as they were shifting it into trade paperback, they did it all over again, the major works anyway, with new introductions and new notes. But the introductions and the notes to the other ones were great. There's got to be some way to, well, I don't know. I don't know. Are we ever going to see an annotated edition of The Spy Who Came In From the Cold? It could really use one.
Good. I think that'd be
Yeah.
very interesting.
It would be.
Well, all of you are really old. I'll probably live to see it. See, annotated
recently-
editions of Carré would be great.
I recently bought an edition of annotated for the book for the Big Sleep, which was
Oh, it's
interesting.
good.
Yeah, it was very good.
I think an annotated edition of The Big Sleep would probably be the only way you could understand the plot.
Even Raymond Chandler didn't understand the plot. He didn't know what was going
I've
on.
read the book like 4 times and seen the movie 3 or 4 times. I still could not tell you what happens.
No, those, if you're listening in the chat and you're wondering, I'm pretty sure that all of us who've read The Big Sleep would overwhelmingly recommend it, and we would all also say we have no idea what the hell happened.
I thought it was just me at first.
No,
no.
no,
I really did. I thought it was me, and then I realized later,
Nobody knows
no,
what
of course it's not just me.
The director
You're not
of the
reading
movie,
it for the plot. You're
the
reading it
director
for
of the movie, Howard Hawks, he phoned Raymond Chandler and the chauffeur that went over and died, and he said, "Who killed this guy?" And Raymond Chandler said, "I have no idea." He didn't know. He didn't know. He wrote atmospheric scenes. That's what he was all about, and
Yes.
interesting characters. And
Well,
thank God
I
for that.
remember the Raymond Chandler advice on writing. He says, when you're stuck in a scene, he says, have a man walk in with a gun.
Yes.
Right, there you go.
Figure it out
Yep.
after that.
The classic anecdote here, I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, is that Agatha Christie talked to Blue Streak her entire life. She talked all the time. The older she got, the more opinionated she got, no matter what it was, from the nature of runny scones to the nature of the Nobel Prize. She never shut up. And there's an apocryphal story that someone actually told her about this Raymond Chandler business, and she was completely silent. She had no idea what to make of someone who not only didn't plot well, but didn't plot at all. What do you mean he doesn't know what happens in his own book? I don't know that I believe that, but I love picturing her just falling silent.
I don't know if I believe it either. There is the author Dan Simmons, which everyone should probably at least know his books. And Dan Simmons has come out and says when he's writing a book, he does not know the ending. He says,
Well,
no surprise for the writer, no
sure.
surprise for the reader.
You might not know. Okay, sure. You might not know the ending when you're writing the book, but writing the book is step one. You then have to edit the book, and it has to go to your editors and maybe more editors for him not to know even now.
I don't know. I mean, that's his advice. I mean, I don't think that's honestly true. I think he knows where, I mean, he's going. Maybe not to the extent of some authors. I mean, John Irving is very famous, is that when he writes a book, he says the first thing he does is write the last sentence. Because he says, now I have my target.
I have a question, though. If we could get back to The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Alan made a point in the chat a little earlier.
One second, Jim.
Sorry to interrupt, Steve. I have to go, guys. I apologize.
I do too, actually. I have a lunch date with my daughter at 1.
Oh,
okay.
More women trouble.
Go figure.
Thank you so much. You
Thank you, guys.
See you later, Jim. See you, Randy.
Thanks, guys. See y'all later.
Take care, guys.
We're losing both of them, and Mark Richardson is busy working. What's going on here?
Outrageous, isn't it?
Well, anyway, earlier in the chat, Alan made a point that I want to bring up to the two of you. I think I know where I stand on it. At one point earlier in the chat, Mark, maybe you can put it up on the screen. Alan says that Leamus is an alcoholic, and that would make him easy to manipulate. Do you two agree that he's an alcoholic?
Well, I don't know. You see, my judgment becomes clouded by the fact that every time I see Leamus, I see Richard Burton. So
now, I don't know if that's true. I don't think he was inherently an alcoholic.
He's told to be an alcoholic,
to be the part.
Right. Control tells him hit the bottle. But doesn't Leamus also say at times that long before this story, he was in trouble or was in disrepute because he liked to drink too much?
I don't.
Or is that part of the story?
But he has like alcoholic tendencies, though. But maybe that's after because he has been living the part. But I'm sure there's a moment when he's with Fiedler. Is it Fiedler or Peters maybe? And they talk about his hand shaking.
Right, but wouldn't he do that? If that's all part of the plot, wouldn't he do that even then? He's still trying to sell the part to them.
The thing is, I don't think he was necessarily an alcoholic going into this scheme. But if you're drinking that much, that steadily, to convince people you're an alcoholic, you're kind of going to become one because you're drinking that much, you are going to be drunk. And you're going to get used to being drunk all the time. And
that was certainly what happened to me in the wake of my first marriage to Deb. I thought it was just a temporary anesthetic, but it became a lifestyle.
Well, reading about Philby and Burgess, then it seems like it was part of the job description anyway. So
yeah, but I wonder where Control tells Leamus.
It's true. I don't think there's
ruin his life. He tells Leamus to ruin his life. You are to take to drink. You are to stop changing your shirts and collars. You are to beat a man and go to jail. The plan, as we eventually get it, as we get more and more of these flashback conversations, was for Leamus to ruin his life so that he would be an attractive target.
Yes, and you can't fake it. I mean, because they will.
That's what I'm asking. Can you fake it?
No, I mean, I think he really, had to play the part and become the part.
I think they would know, wouldn't they, if you faked it? That's the problem. Like, he really has to go all in.
What an amazing thing to ask an agent.
For Queen and Country. Let me just run through some of the comments because we left them a little bit, but and then we'll come back. Alan's well, first, hi to Jenny, of course. Hello. Where were we? So Leamus.
Jenny's calling me a grumpy man.
Leamus was a pawn. Ultimately, I thought Control was Leamus's friend. Certainly not. Well, no. Control probably only really has one friend in the series, and that's arguably Smiley, I suppose, isn't it? And even then, it's not entirely clear. Tim's too many books. Everyone loves Lady Anne. Yeah. It's Is it Roddy Martindale in Tinker Tailor? Everybody's love to Anne. Charlie, the girl in Little Drummer Girl, was based on Le Carré's half-sister Charlotte Cornwell, who was an actress. All food is ghastly in British novels from the 1930s to the 1960s. Kevin just popped in to say hi. Sadly, he's probably long gone, but he says he's loving Dr. No-Vember. I read A Spy, came from the cold, I guess, and now I'm reading The Needle. Oh, I don't know that one.
Eye of the Needle by Follett, probably.
Alan's already mentioning he has the annotated copy of The Big Sleep as well. Oh, annotated by him. Okay, yes. Tim says, my favorite story about Raymond Chandler is that he was once faced with a tight deadline for a screenplay and realized he could only do it if he was paralytic. The Richard Burton film movie was awesome. It's streaming free on demand on Pluto TV. So we've caught up there pretty much.
Surely there isn't any such thing as Pluto TV. There isn't any such thing as Pluto TV.
No.
That's not made up. Pluto TV.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is.
Kevin will have to elaborate if he's still around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's enjoyable. It was an enjoyable read, but I have to say, Liz, I don't know whether it was just with listening to it on the narration, but she did kind of get on my nerves a little bit.
I didn't want to object to Jim's characterization because I'm so familiar with his love of noir that you don't want to get when somebody's got a voice like his, you don't want to be the one to say that the good dame that he's defending is actually a twit. I'm worried that he'll have a snub-nosed 22 in his trench coat or something like that. But she's off. She's unbearable.
The funny thing is, though, I have to say I agreed with Jim when I first read it. You know, I thought, oh, it's so sad. You know, this poor woman, so lonely. She's tricked into all this stuff. But I don't know. As it gets, second time I was like, meh, and this time I'm like, oh well, I don't actually feel anything. It's terrible, isn't it? I'm like, oh.
She tricks herself at every step. It's just the story of her and her fellow communists when she's abruptly relocated is utterly pathetic. You'd have to be a moron not to see through it, not to see what was going on, not to know that you would end up in that courtroom. She had to be a moron not to know that.
I agree. I mean, how could she not know?
How could she not know?
Oh, we got this special trip for you because you're such a loyal party member.
Or even before that, when she's nursing Leamus and having those. Le Carré describes their afternoons together. They sound ghastly. she's nursing him and getting to know him. At one point, she says, "You seem to me like a man with a secret." And he freezes completely. He looks her in the face and says, "You better watch your mouth." And then she changes the subject and never thinks about it again. If I had that reaction, people would notice. They would.
But doesn't what's his name? Is it Carré?
No. The one thing, Steve, is that when you hear about women in bad relationships, a lot of them are unwilling to give up that bad, even though they know it's a bad, and they know the man is wrong. They know they stay because they think that's where I am. That's all that I have.
He goes from one bad relationship to the next to the next.
She doesn't have any other relationships. What other relationship does Liz have?
That's true. She doesn't really, does she? Because she says she's faithful to him. I love the fact we're all giving relationship advice now. You know, we've got a confirmed bachelor, one married man over here, and one married man over there, like 25 times to the same person. So, but is it Carton or Carden, the prosecutor? I can't remember his name. But doesn't he make a snide comment about her in terms of her character or something when he's like, you know, because she received the money and the lease and then something else, and he makes some comment like, oh, I think we should have a word with our, like, you know, cousins in the Communist Party of Great Britain because of your values or something like this. So, you know, she even pisses them off.
In the initial interview that Smiley goes to, he's not named, but he's one of the people that talks to her and asks, did you love him? Do you love him still? Even in that interview, it's heavily implied that she's a moron. That it seems to me to be this open window into Le Carré's mind that the minute you show emotional vulnerability to a woman, you're doomed. It's just you either she's going to get you killed, or she's going to die herself, or she's going to cuckold you, and everybody's going to know about it.
Well, I don't think the Carré himself. Well, I guess he was a bit of a ladies' man, but I don't think he treated them well.
No, that latest revelation by who is it? His daughter. The latest book.
The biographer who did his official biography, but I think the thing is, he said he toned it down for the official biography when Le Carré was still alive.
Allegedly full of lecherous behavior, just full of it. And that a recent letter exchange in the TLS saying that not only was his life full of lecherous behavior, but that all the other operatives, the real life operatives, saw that and started leching around because they thought, what are we missing if he's doing this? I don't know how much
they were anyway. Like a lot of them really lecherous people. I mean, Philby, McIntyre takes great pains in pointing out how he liked to goose the waitresses and things like that. So, you know, unfortunately, but it's not a normal world. That's the thing. It isn't a normal world. You can't be a normal person and be held to the same, you know.
No, and it's always kind of striking. In The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, not talking about, for instance, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or especially The Perfect Spy. It's kind of striking in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold how little even incidental contact we have with the normal world. I'm thinking of the scene where Leamus is on his way to defect. He is being taken to East Germany, and they're in an airport terminal, and he wants to buy a newspaper to see if there's a story about him being wanted by the police, and he buys it from the girl at the kiosk in the airport. Is just a perfectly nice girl. He says, I only have, real currency, not fake currency. I hope that's okay. She's overjoyed to get it. We don't know anything about her. We don't learn her name or anything, but I think she might be the last normal person that we have any contact with. Everybody else, including the landlady, they're all in on it. They all know more than they show that they do. That's kind of weird. Ordinarily, spy novels don't do that, do they? I mean, I think spy novels get a lot of their narrative energy by the contrast between the circus world and the real world. This one has barely any of the real world in it.
I think the interesting thing is Le Carré is actually he's still a serving agent when he writes this book, when it's published. He hasn't retired.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought no. This was what.
If you guys watched, well, but if you're not on Discord, but I shared. It's worth watching. There's like a 45-minute interview with him where he dissects The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. It's like maybe
10 minutes.
It's like, yeah.
Oh wow! Really?
He says in it that it was because of this one he handed in his resignation because finally, I forget, one of the British newspapers unmasked him, because they were saying, that he was living in Germany, doing this work, and then they were able to put two and two together, and it was him. So he quit. But while he was writing it, he was still working for the circus. So, that might have some bearing on it. But also Leamus isn't a lovable character either. I mean, it's hard to feel much sympathy, especially on, as I say, second, third, fourth reading of it for either of them. To be honest, first time around, yes, I did feel very sad for Liz, but
what it's mentioned that Leamus had a wife, had kids,
2 kids,
and really he has zero contact with them, other than mentioning that they exist somewhere.
I mean, I suppose
they're getting regular payouts from a bank.
Well, the interesting thing as well is that he doesn't want her involved, right? He says that, so he says anyway, to control. Don't do anything, don't touch it, blah, blah, blah. But then, who does he list as his next of kin?
Next of kin,
unless Smiley was lying when he said that, but he might not well have done, because he said, he had a wife and two children, but he lists her as his next of kin. But he could be lying, of course. But yeah, it's curious. There's a couple of comments before we go back to this. Dum, 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 dum. Actually, there aren't that many, but what we got? Kevin says the Richard Burton movie is awesome. Oh yeah, no, we read that. Pluto TV is real. It's a free TV and movie app. Oh, okay, I didn't know it. Bill's here from Bill's Books. Hello. Jenny has a question for you, Steve. Are you cheating on Britta with Debs? And Kevin, Steve, you would enjoy Pluto TV. They have 24-hour Star Trek channels to view. So there you go. So it's a free TV app. I'll have to check that out because... did he say it's free? Yeah. I'll have to check it out because here I don't get a lot of English TV. But no, you mentioned a legacy of spies earlier, Steve, and the reason why, Greg, I don't know if you've read it, but the reason I mentioned it's a kind of sequel, I haven't read it yet either, but I read the premise, and it is one of Leamus's sons, apparently, that comes out of the woodwork in that book to sue the British government over the handling of their father's death.
The current leaders of the circus and Legacy of Spies are all appalled that imagine lawsuits. A bullet in your driveway, poison in your soup, but a lawsuit? Oh, wow. Well, how have things fallen from here? I had a hard time with that. I reviewed it for the Boston Globe, I think. And I had a hard time. I went back and forth with my editor. She was not antagonistic at all. But she kept wondering, well, okay, this isn't like you. You're clearly indicating that there's a massive backstory here, but you're not telling it. And I told her, well, because I have 800 words. I would need all of that to tell the backstory. I wouldn't be touching the book at all. And also, the only people who are going to be in any way interested in this book are people who already know the backstory. And when I said that, she said, oh, well, if that's the case, should we be reviewing it at all? It sounds like you're talking about a very small readership. And that's when I wanted to say, well, it sounds that way, darling, because you're 25. That's why it sounds that way. If you weren't 25 and you knew something about anything at all, you wouldn't say that. Instead, I just had to say, no, you'll like the traffic that you get on it. It will be really healthy.
So do 25-year-olds read John le Carré?
No. And you could have left John le Carré out of that sentence.
Well, 28-year-olds obviously do, right?
Well, the 25-year-olds read a fantasy.
They don't read anything. On Twitter just this morning, a guy who's I followed his journey. He worked really hard to get his degree, worked really hard to get a job at a university teaching freshmen. And he posted just this morning saying, one thing I know now beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's the most obvious thing, and I didn't know it before, is that my students know TikTok. And they know literally nothing else. Not reading, not history, not the past in any way. They know TikTok. If it's on TikTok, they know it. And if it's not, they simply don't. And they don't want to. He was saying it in non-judgmental terms, but I believe him. I completely believe him. Now, I don't know. Pick a normal 18-year-old and ask them to read this book. Can you picture it?
Not a normal one.
Unless they're the kid of a bookish person. One of Mark Richardson's kids. I could picture them probably reading this and liking it. But
I mean, we do have. I mean, I'm in a school environment quite often, and there are quite a few readers, though mostly there is a big gender gap. They tend to almost exclusively be girls. It's very unusual that I'll see any of the young men or the boys reading books, but in the break times I will see, it's a small school of 130 students, 160 students, 170 students, and I'll probably see between 8 or 9 girls reading every day, but never see any boys, which is also sad.
That is sad.
I mean, it's the thing is, I know, at least like from YouTube, you get those shorts, and sometimes those shorts can be like very addictive that you keep wasting your time. Say, why am I watching this crap?
You keep this going up, and then 30 minutes have passed.
They're made to be addictive.
Except my shorts that don't get many views at all.
Oh, you actually make shorts?
I make a couple shorts. But
I noticed that on Instagram, if you want to post a video clip, it now becomes a reel. You can't post it as a post on your channel. It has to be part of your reels. I try to tell myself that's just a software issue, but
I just post shorts of me in shorts. So
see, now that's something you want to skip, right?
it's designed to break the addiction.
No, part of it is just also the YouTube algorithm. Like I first tried like a cat short, and one of the first ones got like 5,000 views, and then it gets hot. I mean, I don't know what it is, but the YouTube algorithm says, nah, his shorts, nope, don't need those. Who knows?
Do either one of you picture yourself ever reading this book again?
Maybe.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, not right, because actually, if we had done this next week, I would have gone to the library and gotten the audiobook and listened to it again. I would have, but I didn't have time this week. But I still want to do the rest of the George Smiley books. Again, the thing is, even though I just read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy the other week, I kind of want to reread it before I go on to the Honorable Schoolboy.
Yeah. These books, I did not realize that before this event. I did not realize how incredibly rereadable Le Carré is. He's not just rereadable. He's incredibly rereadable. And without taking anything away from the initial construction of the books, they are well constructed. It's just you get so much more out of them when you read them again.
Well, there's so much in them. That's, I mean, the intricacies of it.
They're written backwards. They're written backwards. They're written so that the more you know going in, that you can't possibly know.
That's what Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I was reading, said, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know my wife read it a few years before. She says, you have to have a college degree to read this book. I mean, it's just, it takes all your brain power, and you can't.
And the disillusioning thing for me is that I don't know if this is just me, maybe it's just bad timing, but I am very much discovering the opposite with Len Deighton, and especially Ken Follett. I'm very much discovering the opposite. Good Lord. I mean, think about this book, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. At no point anywhere does Le Carré slow down to spoon feed you anything. You're scrabbling the whole time. Okay, who's this? Okay, what's going on here? All right, which I've seen this character say 5 different sentences. They don't seem to be connected to each other at all. They're long separated by action. Which of those 5 sentences turns out to be really, really, really important? Is it Leamus saying, well, no, if they'd been running someone out of Berlin, I'd have known it? Or is it Leamus saying at the very beginning of the book, I'd like a shot at Munt? It turns out it's the first one. I'm willing to do anything to get at this guy.
I mean, I'm curious to what degree he had because, as you said, Munt is in. Is it Call for the Dead, or is it the second one?
Call for the Dead. I don't know if he was intended to be a returning character later on.
What I mean, you have to wonder with it, because he drops people in. And there's people who are like really minor characters, and some. It's like Jerry Westerby and Tinker Tailor. He's like got, I don't know, a couple of pages, but he's the honorable schoolboy, right? So the whole book is pretty much about him. And I just wondered to what degree, when he set out writing these so-called 9 Smiley novels, had he some picture of what way they were going to go, or whether it was just a case of, oh, let me go back and look at the last couple of books I wrote, and then maybe I get an idea.
The first 2 Smiley books are not espionage.
No,
they are mystery novels with an espionage agent in the role as the detective.
Yeah.
So my guess is that Le Carré went back to his first book, and I know he does not like his quality, A Murder of Quality. I know he doesn't like that, but
which is the first one. Is that the first one or the second one? I always get confused.
Murder of Quality is the second.
The second, and Call for the Dead's the first. Yeah.
Call for the Dead is pretty good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
But he
I just
probably
wanted
went
to-
back and said, you know, this
Sorry,
one
yeah, hold,
character-
hold that thought, Greg, because what you're saying basically answers Kevin's question. Are the previous two books worth reading? Just wondered why you started on A Spy Who Came In From the Cold. So, Greg, go back to what you're saying. The first two are murder mysteries. I think that's
the
part of the
first two are
reason.
murder mysteries. I've read Call for the Dead twice and Murder Equality just once. And I was going to go back and revisit them, but you know, I just got sidetracked.
Yeah, they wouldn't have worked for Dr. No-Vember. Whereas
No,
the
no.
spy who came in from the cold, the spy who came in from the cold, the title has entered the common parlance.
Yeah.
It's that much a part of our culture that it was the obvious choice. Plus what Mark said, that it was the first big success.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that answers hopefully the question there, Kevin. That's the reason we started with it. They're worth reading, but you know, it's I think it's an ideal one to start with, possibly, or not. I don't know. Tinker Tailor, maybe. But
So
it was quite long.
are we
I
going
think
to
Spy's
discuss
better.
Tinker Tailor again next time?
Yeah, I think we should do Tinker Tailor for next year.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant, are we going to discuss Spy Who Came In From the Cold in our next live stream?
No, because I think everybody has read it, maybe, haven't they? Or
So are we going to have another live stream
of course, Dr.
Yes.
November's not over.
with Mark and Randy and Jim?
Yeah, we got to try and work out a time to get Mark on, definitely.
Well,
I want to bring in Tim as well from Tim's Too Many Books, because you know, I know he was busy last week. It'd be nice to have him because I think he knows a bit about this stuff. So it'd be good. I don't know how many we can have on at once, but
you can have a total of 6 people on the free version of StreamYard.
That would work out then, just about, probably. So yeah. See,
You'll have
that
to teach me how to use this. It can't be that hard to know how to use it.
it isn't hard at all. I'm sure you've used it. You have used it. You've streamed on it once. Yeah.
But I've never done multiple participants in anything, StreamYard or Zoom or whatever. It can't be that hard. Plenty of people I know do it. Plenty of editors have me in as an extra person, and they don't have 2 brain cells to rub together. So if they can figure it out, I can figure it out.
It's not hard, Steve. Have you ever signed up for StreamYard?
I do have a StreamYard account. Yeah.
Okay, because I was about to say it takes 24 to 48 hours to sync it up to your YouTube. So if you're already synced up, all you really need to do is go to StreamYard, schedule a meeting. You can do it right away or schedule it.
And then just keep inviting people.
You just send the link.
You send the link. I mean,
I send the link to all the participants. Okay.
Right, because what happens is when you go to StreamYard, you do your 3 dots and it says invite guests, and you click copy, and you just sent that link either in Voxer or email, and they click on it, and you're in.
So I hate to say this since we lost Randy and Jim, but I'm being told that I'm going to need to go. Someone's getting restless, but I want to know. Do you have either one of you have any idea what more espionage stuff you're going to read in November? What is your Dr. November TBR?
I have one that I was supposed to be reading. It was Robert Little.
Oh, right. Yes.
It was not the company. It was one of his later books.
Yeah, he kept going. Right. The company did really well, so he just kept going.
Right. It's the. I'm drawing a blank. It was. I looked it up, when doing research, and said, "Oh, $1.99. I'll buy that one."
I swear, they see you coming with those deals.
I often think that because I have a wish list, and if I don't buy off my wish list for a while, books start popping up on sale.
I've noticed that with YouTube events. It's like during June on the Range, suddenly I was getting a couple of Westerns in my the aggregator was sending me through some Westerns, and I was thinking,
it's the key thing to remember. Social media technology is always listening.
Yes.
Yeah. But I read, or I will read. Sorry, I read. I forgot to mention it earlier. I read Arthur Ransom's 6 Weeks in Russia. this week, which I really enjoyed because it was kind of following on from the Giles Milton book that I read last week. And then I started as well Red Dusk and the Morrow, which is Sir Paul Dukes's own experiences in Russia during the revolution. And then I started also the one you read, Greg, Spy and a Traitor. Is it by Ben
Yes.
McIntyre about Oleg Gugurevsky?
I'm doing a Ben McIntyre on audio next after I finish G-Man. Agent Sonia.
And I will read. Hopefully, I can do it in a week. A Perfect Spy, which I haven't read before. So
that's a long one.
Oh well, I'll do my best then.
Yeah,
I've read only those. I've only read the Smileys up to Smiley's People so far. I've read other Le Carrés. I mean, like I quite like the Tailor of Panama for one, and a few others. But I know. I have my own weird things, you know. And I was looking at The Quiet American, which I might pick up again and read, although it's not communist Russia. It still has some bearing, I think. So
I'm going to keep at Len Dayton.
Yeah.
Even though you're not liking him, you're going to keep at.
What about Forsyth, Frederick Forsyth?
I remember liking Len Dayton. I seem to remember liking a lot of his stuff. I know that a couple of these books I've read before. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Spy I've never read before, and Mamista I'd never read before. But I'm sure that I read the Game, Set, and Match books before. I know that I did.
I know I've read Berlin Game. I remember the final reveal of that. There's you're coming to, oh, well, isn't that kind of clear from the beginning?
Well, don't spoil it, because
no, I mean, I'm not saying
Jim's reading it.
No spoilers, but I recently got a hardcover of all 3 books, and I thought, all right, this is a sequence. I'll just read it straight through, and I don't know if it's the proximity to Le Carré, but I thought it was just barely north of bad. I don't remember feeling that about it when I read them the first time. I don't remember that. So I'm just going to keep trying. I know I like his novel Winter, but it's not espionage. So
I have one question though before you go.
We need to come up with really solid espionage fiction. It's not Bond and not George Smiley. I came up with a few that are in my original video, but you know,
a lot of people told me Eric Ambler.
I've never read it. I've never read any Eric Ambler.
I have one to get to. I think his debut that I need to get to before Dr. No-Vember is over. Dr. No-Vember and NaNoWriMo and Nonfiction November will all be my last BookTube events of 2023. So I want to give them my all.
One question before you leave, Steve, if I can, and it's not espionage related. It's just I was curious about, you know, the author Robert Goddard.
I read one.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's been going for a long time, and then I was just surprised because I saw 3 books that I guess he's done the last 3 years, and it has like even just looking at the cover, looks like he's taken a complete change around or something in his writing, because he's now doing like these kind of detective stories with like a Japanese detective and one with I think maybe some North African detective or Middle Eastern detective. I don't know. And I was just very surprised because I know he's been around for years. And he used to have a lot of books usually set in like the 20s or 30s and things like that in England. And now he seems to be writing, you know, completely different kind of stuff. And I just wondered if you had any thought on that, knew anything about it.
I don't know anything about this at all.
Yeah.
It could, I mean, oftentimes you will see that behavior in an author who no longer needs to make money.
Yeah, I mean, he's been going since the 80s at least, and he's not even 70 yet, actually, almost. But I just thought, because I was looking at something and I thought, hang on, is that the Robert Goddard, you know? And it was. I'll show you. I've got a couple of them on ebook, and I was just very surprised because you know, like when you see the covers and stuff, it's just complete big what's the word? Not deviation, or maybe deviation. Move away from his you know, how you, I don't know if you can see there, this kind of like, and they seem to be like humorous. You know, the Guardian calls him the greatest storyteller and things like this, and I'm just curious how
maybe he's just trying to cash in on the way books are going now, is that you don't write about white men anymore. You know,
yeah, but then he's also taking it in. He's being a bit dangerous by writing about an Asian woman, isn't he? Because he isn't.
Is he self-published? Are those self-published?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're hang on, who Bantam?
Oh. Are they reprints?
No, they're newish, and like 2000. I don't know, 2000.
Well, those editions, yes, but those editions are clearly new. But is it possible that they're very old work? That
No.
Okay. No, I don't get that at all.
No, it just seems really interesting to me, because you know, he was very popular when I was growing up. You know, extremely popular. You know, loads of people would be reading like Into the Blue or Past Caring and
Into the Blue. Yeah, I read that and loved it.
Yeah, but it just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's just a reason why he's gone that way. But I thought it was very interesting, and I love these kind of detective books that are outside our normal kind of, you know, like I love these Vishpuri detective novels in India and stuff. They're great fun. Something different. So I wondered, yeah, maybe it's something he always wanted to do, and now he's made the money. He can do what he wants to do rather than what he has to do. So
you're the first person I knew of who knows about the Vishpuri murder mysteries. I've never met anyone else who knew about them.
Love them. Absolutely love them.
Absolutely. They are a perfect example of the detective as imbecile.
Yeah.
They work perfectly for that.
But so, because it's usually his mother, isn't it? Mummy G who does all the work. But
it's really not him. He has the highest opinion of himself in the world, but it's certainly not him.
Yeah, but completely enjoyable. I recommend them, Greg. Seriously. Tarquin Hall is the writer.
You have to repeat the author's name again?
Tarquin Hall.
Tarquin Hall.
Yeah. Now, he's a white English guy. I think he might be Anglo-American, actually.
He couldn't write those books today.
Well, I think he can, because I think he gets away with it because he's married to an Indian and he lives in India. So I think that's his get out of jail free card there on that score. But they are wonderful. They're wonderfully fun. He's a private detective. He's got a big, you know, kind of bushy mustache and stuff. He's short. He's always eating. He's always getting like pakora grease on his papers and stuff. And he's got a whole army of like.
I don't have the first idea what he's doing.
No,
he might by accident bump into an important clue, but other than that, no, no, not at all.
You know, there are loads of great books like that. I mean, I look at Gary Corby's Greece detectives, ancient Greece, what the Pericles Commission is. Oh, you never hear anybody else talking about those books, and they're fantastic. You know.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I reviewed one of those.
Yeah. David Wishart's. I know you know David Wishart's books, but you never see people talking about those either, and they're great.
David Wishart's book, and also in Corby's book, the main crime solver knows what they're doing. They're not.
Well, yeah, but again,
parallel there.
That's true. No, but I was just thinking about fantastic detective books you never see on.
No, the closest, I think, as odd a comparison as it is, I think the closest thing to Vish would be Flashman. Who just doesn't get what's going on at all. He's got motives of his own. They don't. The only difference is that Vish actually thinks he's a great detective.
Yeah, well, but he has awards to prove it, though. But that's just because of the outcome, probably, of anything else. But yeah, it's they are great fun.
Before you do, let me look these up so I can. Because
I'll stay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go, and then I'll talk to you in the thing after, Greg. I'll give you the information. So we'll all go. But
I'm being insistently pawed.
All right. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Do take care, and we'll see you next week. But I don't know when. We'll let everybody know, of course. So
we'll hammer it out.
All right. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks.